How's it going, folks? So I got a little bit of free time, so I am going to be responding to ChckMcn real quickly. And the response he made to me. So I will say this: if I misrepresented any of your arguments, Chick, I apologize. That was never my intent. With that being said, yeah, you're right. I've seen three of your videos on this channel. One was a response to Jenks, and the other two were responses to me. So yes, I also understand that you could have been including some responses to Jenks in there that I just took as being responses to me. So okay, yeah. So all right, you're saying that you're not right leaning, that you're fascist, and this is fair enough. Fascism is really not a right leaning ideology, and there are a lot of people with a misconception of that, and unfortunately, there are some fascists that think of themselves as right leaning, even though they're not. Think of, Richard Spencer, who calls himself alt right, but, has more of that National Socialist mentality, for at least what it seems. I could be wrong. So, I made the argument of skin color, by the way. Your argument is that, we have white Americans and black Americans, and they're of two different races. Well, my argument is that these differences are more superficial than anything else. At least the inherent ones are more superficial than they are critical. And what I mean by this is that you're going to find more in common with, say, a white American and a black American, generally speaking, than you are going to find with a black American and a black African. Sure, the black African and the black American are probably going to look closer to each other than the black American and the white American. And just the same, the white American and the white European are going to look closer to each other than the white American and the black American. However, on the cultural level, it's more likely that the white American and the black American are going to share more critical traits. And I know this is also very oversimplified given the fact that the U.S. has several different cultures within its own borders. There is no one American culture. Life in New York City is a night and day difference than, say, being on a farm in Iowa. You know, um, growing up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana is going to be a little bit different than growing up in Minneapolis. Being on a ranch in Texas is going to be a completely different lifestyle than, working in, say, a factory in Detroit. Just, yeah, we have got a bunch of different cultures within the U.S. This part is true. I mean, even when you're talking about voting habits, you're saying that black Americans are more likely to vote Democrat because the Democrats call the other guys racist, the Republicans racist, and Democrats give them stuff. Well, this sounds like there's a cultural explanation to it, does there not? How have blacks been treated in this country for quite some time? And in fact, for the majority of this country's existence. It sounds like they've been treated like an underclass. I mean, first, generally speaking, being slaves, and then after slavery was ended, well, looks like they were still treated as a servant class. So is it any wonder that maybe there's a disproportionate number of them that might be voting for a benign master as opposed to a public servant who executes the duties of their office and does not see their office as a means to be master over everybody else. So you see where I'm getting at with that. Next, I want to discuss gay marriage real quick. Yeah, I realize that we've had a number of anti-sodomy laws in this country. However, I think the only state that was actually issuing the death penalty for it was Virginia, and I think Thomas Jefferson actually was one of the key figures in putting a stop to executing people for homosexual conduct, for lack of a better term. And true, we had these laws on the books, even as late as 2002. I'll take you at your word on that one. Does that make that right? I don't think it does. Furthermore, you say your government recognizes homosexual marriage, and that's a problem. Okay, well, guess what? This government, it just does not belong to you solely, does it? It would belong to that couple that you would deny their marriage. And I don't care, that it's not a marriage in your eyes. Nobody is forcing you personally to recognize that. We're just saying, that the state is not solely yours. The state does not bow before your religion. And you know what? I do think it is your right to exercise your religion. The problem in lies is when you cross that boundary. And I have a problem with, by the way, atheists who try to sit there and push Christians out of their religion or treat Christians as if they're lesser because they're Christians. I've said stuff about that too. The inverse is that you don't get to sit here and say, well, my religion has this code for me, therefore it must be put on you too. And my government also must be of my religion. This is where you're getting it wrong. Yes, our founders were varied in their religious faiths, and this is why they say Judeo Christian. They really did set off to have more of a secular government because their ancestors, many of our founders were like fourth generation colonists, but many of their ancestors left Europe because of the religious conflict going on in Europe, the religious repression going on in Europe. So they wanted to put a stop to this. If you look at the First Amendment, one of the protections is basically a protection on your ability to um, exercise your own religion. Another portion of it is a prohibition on, at bare minimum, the Congress from endorsing a religion or boosting a religion or making a state mandated religion. So, yeah, Congress is not supposed to do this. And, you may have a hang up with homosexuality. Okay, that's your personal opinion. That's not for you. But what is also not for you is to dictate to others. And none of this response have you given me a good reason as to how homosexuality and homosexual marriages affect you directly. If you could find a way that they infringed on you, I I would be all ears. And I would be all ears to a solution to make sure it does not infringe on you too. But you're not doing that. Just the same, Um, when it comes to the other side, I said, okay, look, currently, what rights do you have that are being infringed upon by the other side? And I cannot seem to really get any more current examples. I do have some people who are homosexual or who are of the LGBT persuasion that can bring up historical examples, no doubt. These happened in the past, and we've done away with these things. So again, while I will sit there and tell them that they can't sit there and force you to do something like, say, call them by their made up pronouns. When it comes to you, you don't have any right to dictate to them what they do and do not do in their bedroom, or even that they cannot participate in what is a secular institution. If you wanted to take state out of marriage entirely, take away all state recognition of marriage, and say, okay, look, this is a religious institution. If you choose to get married, you choose to get married through the church. However, the church definition of marriage, the church marriage, does not hold legal, you see, uh, legal privilege to it, is the word I'm looking for, or any legal ramifications to it. That would be one thing, but you're not talking about that. You know, you seem to be upset that our government is not prohibiting gay marriage, and indeed, it does seem like you're upset that our government is does not have the anti-sodomy laws anymore. And that's it's not really freedom. It's just like with your perception of free speech. I caught what you said directly at this point. You said you support free speech for you and your people, which it does imply that you're anti-free speech for everybody else, or at least for other people. Well, you see, the thing is that this is one of those things that it's not really free speech. It is much like what the Democrats and big tech are doing when they censor you. And I know you don't like it when they censor you, do you? You don't show your face, and I understand why. I'm not going to sit there and be one of those assholes who sits there and expects you to show your face, because I know that with your position that people will target you personally for that. So I'm not going to say, yeah, you have to show your face. But you don't like that treatment done towards you, do you? So why would you do that treatment to anybody else? You know? And yes, I am in favor of letting assholes who demand censorship laws and who demand censorship. I'm all in favor of letting those assholes suffer the consequences of their own actions. There was a case in the UK quite some time ago. A person by the name of Bahar Mustafa, I believe was her name. She ended up getting in a little trouble there. Now the charges were eventually dropped, and it's unfortunate. I would love to see her ass convicted of that. But she was a big fan of these quote hate speech laws, and then she turned around and broke these very same hate speech laws by I think making a post something along the lines of "kill all white males" was her post. And I'm hoping that this doesn't get me in trouble with YouTube. I mean, yeah, obviously they make some pretty censorious calls, which again I'm not a fan of. But she made that post and then was getting arrested for it, and this is in the UK. Um, she got arrested under the very law she pushed for, and quite frankly, there were people who were saying, "Oh well, we don't really want those laws to be in place, so we should advocate that she be free." And I'm like, no. My position is, while those laws are in place, she should follow them. She should be prosecuted for them, and she should face the full consequences of that. That's the only way that this stuff changes, is when you start tagging people with a massive voice. How can I sit there and say, yeah, put her ass in jail for breaking the law that I think should be taken off the books, but this is something she pushed for, that she pushes for. It was actually in place well before, but this is something she pushed for. She pushes for. Let's let her suffer the consequences of it. How can I sit there and turn around and say, okay, with you're in favor of censorship and you get censored quite a bit. How can I feel any sympathy for you at that point? Answer me that question. Why am I supposed to feel sympathy for you for getting censored when you were pushing for censorship? The only difference is that one seems to be things that you don't like, and the other seems to be things that other people don't like. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think at the end of the day, I want free speech for everybody. Communists, I don't really like communists, but the second they pick up a rifle and start doing little communist revolutions, as far as I'm concerned, they're fair game. They're ducks on the water. Unfortunately, you can't do anything until they go and actually physically do something infringing on other people's rights. And yes, I do believe that, part of being a republic is that you have to actually defend that republic. Uh, you have to actually talk people out of these ideologies. You have to influence people to not be persuaded by these ideologies. And unfortunately, we have a lot of apathetic people in this country. So it really wouldn't matter what system of government you have, it's always going to corrupt. The difference is with a Republican system, and I'm not talking about the party, but I'm talking more about the republic. At least there are some things that people can have in a republic that give them a little bit more time, that buy them a little bit more time. This is like our Bill of Rights. Yeah, our Constitution is getting violated. But you know what's buying us a little bit of time? I know, it's the fact that they haven't changed the culture enough to where they can't just quit pretending they're respecting the Constitution. Which is why, even though you've got a lot of unconstitutional gun laws, even going through the process to get this right here, it's unconstitutional. And even though, they've already pretty much taken the fun switch off of it, I still am able to find a way to get something like this. Guess what? If we were part of the UK right now, you definitely would not be able to have any firearms. And reason for that being is because the UK has laws in place dealing with your social media posts and your ability to own a firearm. Let's just say that, unless they like your social media posts, you're not going to get approved on a license for any firearm. But even if you were able to qualify for a license for a firearm in the UK, it would definitely not be something like this. Now, I know there have been some Brits who've posted, well, they can get something like this, but what they leave out is that the ones they get that look like this are not actually semi-automatic. They're straight pull, which means you have to charge a charging handle every time you fire. So yeah, we are we still have a bit of freedom that the Brits don't. You know, people by and large, there have been a few exceptions, are not getting put in jail over simple social media posts. UK, that happens all the fucking time, dude. So you should be thankful that we declared our independence and got our independence from the UK. And I'm very well aware that we were already well into our war for independence before the Declaration of Independence was signed. You know, you know, I'm very well aware the spark that caused that was when the British regulars tried to confiscate people's guns. I'm not oblivious to that fact. You know, so again, this is part of their own decline. So yeah, when the British government started doing things like that, most definitely, you know, they should have felt the consequences for that. One of which is losing a colony, a colony becoming its own independent country, which I'm grateful for that because there are certain aspects of our culture we wouldn't have without it. You want to bring up the Indian attacks. You're taking that portion, by the way, a little bit out of context. You're misrepresenting the argument on that one. See, our founders were upset that the regulars failed to provide adequate protection from the attacks from the Indians, the tribes. Yes, I'm not oblivious to the fact that many of these tribes engaged in absolute ruthless conduct in warfare and would oftentimes kill women and children. No problem. I'm not blind to that. But the fact that they said, oh, well, we just simply have to live around them. No, it was an adequate protection clause. Yeah, clause. The part of it, they believed, they claimed the British government failed to provide the adequate protection and were denying them the means of doing that. That's what that was about. I know our founders weren't angels either. Again, you're not going to find a perfect society anywhere throughout history. You will find better than other societies. And yeah, at one point, the British Empire was the more benign society of the world. It was the better society to be a part of, but that's no longer the case. So, yeah. So I know there are probably other things I could discuss on this one, but I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to give Chick a chance to fire back a response should he choose, and Chick, you again. I'm more than willing to continue this discussion. It might not be right away when I post a response, but I'll continue discussing this with you. And the rest of y'all have the comment section as well. Y'all take her easy out there and have a great day.